welcome. Welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. So I just want to let you know that when this stream is starting, I just got kicked off of YouTube by YouTube for my last stream going against their policies. And I was talking about the these guys, right? These guys and the current POTUS and back in 2016, 2017, an article came out that many people from that time will remember, right? Myself included. It was mainstream news. It was all over the place, right? And it warned of an impending federal takeover, right? And that it would happen following the guise of attack on, like attacking illegal immigration, illegal aliens, and stuff like that, right? So first and foremost, let me say thank you guys for joining me. That's kind of crazy. I'm a little spooked by that, honestly. I am. I'm a little spooked by that. Not that I haven't been, booted over the years and I've had Google moderators and shit in my chat. So it's very obvious that, the government monitors all this shit, right? Especially Google and all that. But I want to ask you guys to please hit the like, hit the thumbs up if you're watching this. Please hit the like, hit the thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. This is a stream that people need to see. This is something that I'm telling you. It doesn't matter if you're fucking Democrat or you're Republican, right? This is for American citizens. This is for human fucking beings, man. What is happening, if you haven't been able to tell, there's if you've ever watched something, right? And I was talking to somebody earlier, have you ever seen something and felt like there was it was deeper than what the story was, than what the story that you're being given, right? It is deeper than what the story you're being told. Like, we all knew J6 and all of that. We all knew that was deeper than what we were told, right? Lo and behold, 284 federal agents were involved during that incident, right? That's factual. That has now been released. That's now come out. And when we look at what's taking place across, American cities now, as soon as this shit started, popping off, just like many other things, but this one to a different extent. I knew that there was something deeper going on and that this was far more serious than what we're being led to believe. And that this is, the beginning of something, bigger, if you will. So if you want to follow me, Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn. I do appreciate you guys following me on social media. If you find this on YouTube, Facebook, BitChute, Rumble, please like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Share it like wildfire. Get it out there. And I know you guys you're real patriots. And you guys are truthers. And you're decent, good, God-fearing, loving, human beings. So I know you support independent media, real independent media, not shills like fucking, Tucker Carlson, whose dad was in the CIA and, worked for Fox and is pushing the pro-Trump federal narrative. Or Nick Fuentes, who we all know is an agent and informant as well, that's pushing all of their divisive politics to try to keep you stuck in that left-right paradigm. That way you're chasing your own fucking tail instead of seeing what's actually going on in front of your face, right? And I know you guys are are different than that. You're different kinds of people. So support me, support this podcast. PayPal, Cash App, Facebook Messenger, or join me over on Patreon. All the links are in the description. And if you check out the Patreon, you can see the video I did on the J6 stuff. And you can see where, what controlled opposition actually looks like. You guys will remember, and I'm telling you, this is bigger than what most people can even imagine. This is biblical, dude. This is biblical. I don't know if you guys have, well, I know a lot of you have, but those of you who aren't familiar with the scriptures and the Bible and the text and the prophecies, the fall of Babylon is not a good day for Babylon, right? And the country, modern day Babylon, I believe, is the United States. And see, we meet all the requirements. Babylon, surrounded by, all the major bodies of water, that's us, right? The 3 major oceans, we're surrounded by all these large bodies of water. Babylon is also the melting pot of the world, right? It's a nation of all languages, people and tongues, all the multitudes, right? That's none other than the United States of America today, right? We are the modern day Babylon. We have the world's most powerful military, the world's largest economy. The entire world is ran off of the petrodollar, which, whether there's tariffs or inflation or not, it's still number one, right? As of right now. And you guys can remember how all of this kind of began, And I said this before they cut off my last stream, which is crazy. I'm telling you, I'm a little shook. Because I was seeing how on TikTok that, which, remember who just purchased TikTok, by the way. I was seeing how people that are tagging Portland, Oregon and shit like that in TikTok, their streams, like, they're not even allowed to tag that. Like, their shit's being taken down. I've been banned from TikTok twice already, so I can see, a problem with that platform to start with. But people are not even allowed to show the videos that are taking place in that area, And I want to kind of ask you, and I need to do this one a little bit differently than I did before, because I want this to be able to actually reach people, Stalin once said that in order to control the opposition, you have to lead it, right? You have to lead it. We remember how, fake news was coined back in 2016, and this is what happens. Polarization is a tactic that's used by it's a dark psychology tactic. Basically, it's like if you use the system, right? If you make somebody appear to be an enemy of the system, an enemy of the state, an enemy of the powers that be, like we've seen with, the current guy in office, right? We've seen the mainstream media attack him. We've seen, like, this giant fit thrown about him, worldwide. We thought, wow, the entire establishment is against this guy. He must be one of us, right? But see, this was a tactic. This was a tactic. See, what you were actually witnessing was, the old establishment, what was left of the old establishment, running opposition because, and if you remember, during his first term, he was saying how the military and stuff was all with him, and what many people, have said looked like a soft coup or a military takeover, right? Now, we haven't seen tanks in the streets or anything like that, but what we have seen is a slow burn, right? A slow burn from where there was this discrediting of the mainstream media, where they were all labeled fake news and shit like that, right? So all the establishment media was labeled fake news, and they were They were basically removed from their duties. And then what you're seeing was an uprising in independent and alternative media, which then turned the fake news was weaponized against all of us, right? You and me, anybody that wasn't part of the mainstream, anybody that wasn't part of big media and the establishment. You know, we seen this term weaponized against us, and we became the fake news, which we were once again then fact checked by the mainstream media, right? So they took the term, right? This is controlled opposition. They take it, they use it, what looks to be anti-establishment, and then it flips on its head and it's actually turned against the opposition. Do you see how this works? Right? And this happens over and over and over again, right? And what we've seen as a result of this polarization, you've seen people either one of two things, you know, a lot of what we call the liberal, you know, mindset and liberal media, you know, they've been completely anti-Trump, never Trump, resist, shit like that, which, you know what, I think a lot of people were seen as basically, you know, a completely un-American anti-sentiment. It's so un-American that, you know, a lot of people couldn't get down with that. You know, it's like all the nihilists and shit like that was, you know, fell in line with that. These are kind of like the degenerates of society anyways. There were a lot of liberals and stuff like that that were against it, but for different reasons. I don't feel like it was the majority. Most people were already fed up with the status quo. Right? Most people were already fed up with the powers that be, you know, and big government and all of that, big brother, if you will, right? So when we felt like we had somebody on our side, naturally we gravitated towards that. When we seen, you know, big media and all the politicians turn against that, it made him seem like he was, you know, the anti-establishment candidate. Now I want to kind of point you to some of the biblical stuff where this lies, right? You remember all of the different comparisons to King Cyrus, right? How Trump was he was the second coming of King Cyrus and all of this. All the religious leaders hailed him as King Cyrus. He was even minted on a gold coin. You guys remember the Trump coins and all that shit? Round one when he came in. And what people, you know, may or may not know about King Cyrus, you know, that he was the outsider who became the king of Babylon. And in Babylon's 4th year, they fell. And if you remember, in Trump's 4th year, it's called the Transition Integration Project of 2020, right? And the nation's capital was occupied by 30,000 National Guard troops. Okay? Right there was the beginning of the end for the United States in a lot of ways, right? Then we seen, and in that transition integration project, they were running exercises, and I believe 2 out of the 3 different scenarios, Biden was going to win. And these were exercises held by the federal government. You can go look this up. It's called the Transition Integration Project. Fact check me. And in these scenarios, it was a contested election, alleged election fraud, and all these different things, right? And then Biden would win out of 2 or 3 different scenarios. So these were all exercises that were planned and prepared for by, you know, the powers that be. Trump comes back around this time and you see a very, very different beast, do you not? First and foremost, you know, if we think about the different attributes, and we're going to look at the Bible verses surrounding the Antichrist, Bible verses surrounding the fall of Babylon, and I'm going to show you the similarities, and we're going to also look at the facts, right? The facts that show this. And I tried to read this, and this is what I believe got me kicked off stream a second ago, okay? This is what got me kicked off stream. And if you go to Snopes and you look at Wiki and all of this, they're going to tell you that this was a hoax and that it was debunked. But anybody that actually remembers, see, they do this to us. They try to tell us what reality is, right? And what's real and what's fake. And it's like, how many different things have they told us don't exist that actually do, or didn't happen the way that they actually happened, right? Remember, history is his story, and it goes to the victors, right? So whoever wins the war, whoever wins the conflict, whoever's in charge writes the narrative, right? And that becomes history. History is just an agreed upon, way that the narrative happened. Nothing more, nothing less. And, if you don't believe that, look at your history books and tell me how factual those fucking things are, right? In school. What you learned in history in school as opposed to what it really was, right? Go look at the media and what they tell you, the way that things happen as opposed to what they really was, right? Do you not remember, the president and all the right-wing influencers and shit like that on J6 when they were all calling for everybody to go there and, basically saying like, because of that transition integration project, the contested election shit, right? Which was an exercise, right? They were encouraging that shit. And what happened? 284 federal agents were in place. Go to my Patreon and you'll see for yourself, right? They were using fake fucking pepper spray. They didn't even have real badges on, guys. It was, there was people in the crowd, real people, that now have, felonies and charges. I'm sure they're probably the people that never got let out or weren't pardoned, because they weren't fucking informants or whatever, that were in the crowd saying, they're all actors, because they were regular people that got duped by the shit. The same way that regular people right now are being duped into going to these protests in these major cities. And it's like, I really, really want to caution people, and this isn't out of fucking fear or anything else. This is what people don't understand. Like, the best way to defeat this kind of shit is not to fight against it and riot and all of that. That's what idiots do, That's what stupid people do. That's what peasants do, Smart people would stay their ass at home and give them no reason to have force out into our cities. They would look foolish. It would look ridiculous if they're all standing out in the middle of the street and nobody's out there fighting with them. Nobody's getting tased by them for all the social media. Nobody's getting tear gassed by them. You see what I'm saying? And we all know, and it's like, and isn't it funny how everybody, with all the, Charleston and all the, or Charlottesville or whatever the fuck it was, all these, white supremacist rallies and shit like that back in the day. They were all George Soros protesters, paid protesters and all of that. You don't think that's still taking place now? If they were using, federal agents and shit like that in J6, you don't think they're still using that stuff now? In the major population centers to justify what they're doing now? It's like, as American citizens, we have to reach a point to where it's like, okay, we need to use our brains here. And it's not about a left-right paradigm. It's like, you got to wake the fuck up. If you're still stuck in that, then it's like, you're either a boomer, and that's just the paradigm you grew up in, and, and I feel sorry for you that you haven't evolved past that, or the propaganda is working wonders on you, and you're probably a low IQ person, You're probably a low IQ person. If I hear one more influencer say, liberal this, liberal that, or it's like, this isn't liberal or conservative, not by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm getting ready to show you how. And hopefully I can get this out without them kicking this stream offline. I guess I violated the policies for what they didn't say. They just said I violated the policies. So I kicked my last stream offline. So that should let you know, if anything, that's, this is one of the things I've stuck by over the years, and it's like when you're under attack, that means you're over the target, right? So it's like whenever I'm being silenced, whenever I'm being censored, whenever I'm being maligned, whenever I'm being discredited, whenever any of that is taking place, that has been my barometer for me to know that I'm right the fuck on point, you know? And I said this in the first stream, you know, I do feel like God protected me. The last couple of years, year or two, I've had, you know, personal issues of my own that's kept me away from really content creation and stuff like that. And I feel like the reason was because if I probably would have continued, you know, there's no telling, you know, if I'd even be standing here right now, if I'd be alive, if I would be in jail, like there's no telling, right? Matter of fact, just a couple of weeks ago, the weekend of my birthday, the FBI sent the Cincinnati police to question me. So, which allegedly the same weekend, you know, Candace Owens, which you can take with a grain of salt, said that she had, you know, something similar, which I doubt. You know, I doubt it. You know, if we look at like you know, the dissipation of all of these mainstream media motherfuckers, you know, now that we think are independent influencers, I hate to tell you, they're not, dude. They're not. Tucker Carlson, his dad was in the CIA. If you look at that, you know, I watched his last video, and I'm telling you, it was straight propaganda. That's what it was. It was fear tactics. It's like, oh, we should all be so afraid. Normal people can't walk down the street. I live in a city. I'm walking right down the fucking street right now. In the middle of the night, walking down the street completely unbothered. And I live in the hood on top of it. And in a business district on top of it. You know? And I'm sure, you know, multi-millionaire yuppies like Tucker Carlson are big pussies. That's why they can't walk down the street. But and I would show you pieces from that segment, but if I use anything from his videos, they will automatically remove my content. You know, he's one of those people. You can't use anything of his. They'll take it down completely if you do. But he went on to have you know, other media members and stuff like that come on there and talk about how they went to Portland, and because they're all trying to gas everybody up to want to send, you know, the feds and the National Guard to Portland and all these major cities because this is for our own good. This is for our safety and security. Well, I want to remind you what safety and securities look like every time they pull one of these things. Do you remember the war on drugs? Do you remember the war on terror? Do you remember the war on COVID? How did that safety and security turn out for us? Do you think this will be any different? Is my question. Do you think this will be any different? This time it's different. This time we need them. This time we should all be scared. And see, this is what they do. They go off of fear. You know? Fear. They know that people, when they are afraid, and they're operating out of a space of fear, they just want to be protected. They just want to feel safe and secure. You know? And so they'll say, please protect us. You know? Any means necessary, protect us. You know, not knowing that 9 times out of 10, I want you to think about it. Think about all these different events that have happened over the years. And I want you to think really fucking hard. Right? Really hard. All these events, right? Were these actual real people that did these events? Huh? Were they? Or were they create laws and regulations? Or were they create probable cause to tighten down restrictions against all of us, the citizens? Right? Think about it. Every time a school Vegas, right? Think about it. Parkland, think about it. And now think about what you think to be organic influencers, like Charlie Kirk. How many influencers are hanging out with the president, right? Have fucking $100 million fucking nonprofit organizations, right? Kicking it with Benjamin Netanyahu and shit. That's not normal, dog. Sorry. It's not organic. That's somebody being propped up, right? Which he was a Freemason, by the way. You know? And if you're still having questions about that, you know, which a lot of people have bought into that narrative, you know, that was another one of those crisis events right there, right? And it was to demonize the left. It was to demonize, you know, and make you feel like the right, the patriots, or the conservatives, you know, patriotic America, right-wing, cornbread cooking, Christian, red-blooded Americans are under attack. That's what it is. You know? Like, how many people just conveniently write messages on the things, right? Happens a lot lately. You know? That seems to be a signature of something not organic to me. But what do I know, right? I'm just a regular dude. You know? Just a regular guy. And I want you to think about, you know, these other influencers, right? Divisive people like Nick Fuentes, who was in Young Republicans, shit like that. And, you know, he's been a part of this movement for a long time, and not like you and me, right? Not like you and me. He's now on Alex Jones and everything else. And what are his politics, right? He was part of the J6 stuff, but he didn't go inside, remember? So he okey-doked the people just like the rest of them, you know? All those right-wing influencers, Trump included, right? Calling everybody, hey, come on out. You know, come on out. Let's have a good time. Let's support him. All part of that transition integration project. And then they settle all up for the okey-doke, which come out to be 284 fucking federal agents that were there. If they did it once, what makes you think they won't do it again? And now you have people like Tucker Carlson trying to compare Donald Trump to Eisenhower and John F. Kennedy and the civil rights movement, trying to act like the deployment of ICE and federalizing the National Guard, which is unconstitutional, by the way, right? It's called posse comitatus. It's unconstitutional as fuck, and I don't care who the president is. I'm sorry. And neither should you. If you're a Republican or a conservative or a patriot or a libertarian or a Tea Party member, right? A classic liberal, fuck, if you're an anarcho-capitalist, whatever the fuck you are, if they're going against the Constitution, that should be where you draw the line right there. You know? That should be where you draw the line. You know? That should be where you draw the line. That should be like, okay, I don't give a fuck how much we support this guy, right? Once you start to do that, then you're crossing a line. Like, and here's the problem. You have a whole group of people that blindly support him no matter what he does. And, you know, and he taunts everybody about it. He said, you know, I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and my numbers would go up. You know, and the arrogance goes so far as if, you know, that's why we don't get the Epstein files, because he's all in them, right? And that's been admitted, right? That's been admitted. That's, you know, and we've seen the interviews of Bondi, of Kash Patel, of all of them. They're not loyal to the Constitution, guys. They're loyal to him, you know? And that should be alarming to all of you, because they're servants of the United States of America, not to him, you know. And that means that if they're willing to circumvent the Constitution, if they're willing to circumvent the law, if they're willing to omit shit and hide shit and lie and do all of these different things to the American people in plain fucking sight, right in the public eye, in front of your face. And I'm going to show you some of the videos too in just a moment. Right? Which now they're saying that they're going to treat Antifa just like the cartels. Let me tell you something about that. And Antifa, being labeled domestic terrorists and all of that, they're a decentralized fucking group. So you know what that's actually doing? And you know, I'm not an Antifa member, and I think Antifa's fucking, I think it's fuck shit, is what I think. And I think it's a lot of paid protesters by George Soros and all of these people, right? These globalists, they pay protesters to come in and cause a bunch of shit and havoc in our cities, right? Real people don't do this, dude. Real people don't do this. But here's the thing. If they can go after Antifa like that, then they can go after you and me. They can say any of us are associated with Antifa. They can say any of us are associated with that. So basically what they're saying is that they're going to go after citizens and switch against us the same way that they're going after cartels and shit like that. Now let me show you. This came out in 2016, right? And I told you, I tried to do a stream earlier and they kicked me off. YouTube kicked me off and said I was going against the YouTube policies for talking about this shit. So that lets you know how much they don't want you to hear this shit. So, and this was, and like I said, if you fact check this, they're going to say that this was a hoax and this was a right-wing conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. That's not true. Anybody who was actually alive and in the mix during this time, which I covered this when it came out. This was on media outlets everywhere. This happened. All right? And this was an ICE agent that committed in New York City, and he left a note, right? And it was the government's plans to, you see here? I can't even see this. I'm just going to show you some of it. I want you to look right here. Underneath my head here. That word. And right there. Now, here we go. Here's the note. And this is what's going to get you. You know, other than here comes the police. Hopefully they don't try to fuck with me. But Tucker Carlson telling you that, you know, we need all this protection and shit like that. I want you to take a look here. Protect you from who and what is what you should be asking. And here's the note. The America I grew up in and cherished has been blanked by its own federal government. Our Constitution has become meaningless and our laws politicized so badly they are no longer enforced except for political purposes. Which I want you to ask yourself the question, what's happening right now? You know, if they thought they were being enforced for political purposes under Obama, you ain't seen shit, you know? Back then, I'm not saying Obama was good. He was a fucking piece of shit too. They're all pieces of shit as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, have we ever seen the politicization of our government and of our laws like we've seen now? Have we ever seen anything more divisive and dangerous than we're seeing now? And if you're convinced that this is for your own good, I feel sorry for you. You just don't know. The America I grew up in and cherished has been blanked by its own federal government. Our Constitution has become meaningless and our laws politicized so badly they are no longer enforced except for political purposes, the note said. Our elected officials are, to a person, utterly corrupt and completely devoid of any love or respect for the country which pays them. To them, everything is about getting and keeping power and making illicit money from backroom deals. And here comes that occult numerology, the 42-year-old Immigration Customs Enforcement, which is the same guys who are raiding everybody today, right? Pier 40, and he had a note. I was hired to enforce the law, to capture and deport people who come to this country against our laws. But now, if I dare to do that, I face being suspended or fired because our president refuses to faithfully execute the duties of his office. Instead, I come to work each day, collect a paycheck twice a month for intentionally doing little to nothing. I cannot and will not be party to this fraud, to this usurpation of the law, or to this despicable politicians betraying our nation. He continued. If the American people knew what this government is planning, they would rise up and over blanket. If anyone else in the Gov revealed what is coming, we would be killed anyway. So now I will reveal what I know. We in the feds, have been drilling for several years to control riots and uprisings from a coming financial collapse and widespread bank failures. The drills involve life-size images of American men, even women and children, whom we are told to blank for practice and to, quote, get used to it. We've been told that the economy is terminally ill and will fail, and this was 2016 was the year that this happened. So we are also told the banks are all insolvent and the FDIC doesn't have nearly enough funds to bail out depositors. We are told these events are unavoidable and it is imperative that the government survive when people rise up over this. When the collapse takes place, detention camps created under the FEMA Rex 84 program in the 80s to house illegal aliens whom we are going to deport will instead be used to imprison American citizens whom the government feels constitute a threat. American citizens will be rounded up without warrants and imprisoned without trial for God knows how long. These camps have been equipped to carry out blank scale blanks, an actual purge of American citizens by the very Gov, which they themselves created and paid for. I cannot be party to this. The government knows the military will rise up to stop this. So our military is being deployed overseas, intentionally involved in foreign fights, and deliberately shrunk in size so they cannot be here or help Americans. They're also being federalized in some cases, like the National Guard. So they're on Team Gov now. So this is why so they cannot be here or help Americans. This is why certain ammunition and weaponry has been removed from state-level National Guard armories, and over 1 billion rounds of blank point blank has been bought by the feds. And you guys know this is true. This has all happened already. The states themselves have been disarmed of military-grade firepower, so they cannot defend themselves from federal activities. This is also why local police departments have been militarized and provided with armored vehicles and weapons of war. When the inevitable collapse begins to take place, electric power to the entire country will be shut off, as will all forms of communication. All banks immediately closed, and no one will be able to get any money because all ATMs will be offline. Credit, debit, EBT will not function. Anyone without cash will have no way to get any. The emergency alert system, which Trump implemented, was it October of 2017, the presidential alert system, will be used to take over all broadcast situations and tell the public this is a result of a cyber attack. And I want you to remember this, like step by fucking step. October 2017, the presidential alert system. 2020, the transition integration project, where they had 3 different scenarios, exercises ran by the federal government. 2 out of 3 were a contested election, and then the 30,000 National Guard troops was occupied the nation's capital during the transition of power, right? And then compare that biblically to Cyrus, who everybody hailed Trump, the second coming of Cyrus, being the outsider who became the king of Babylon, which Babylon fell in the 4th year of King Cyrus, who was minted on a gold coin. Trump had the gold coins as well. And guess what? The 4th year, the 30,000 National Guard troops and the Transition Integration Project with the contested elections. Just saying, there's nothing new under the fucking sun. When the inevitable collapse begins to take place, the electric power to the entire country will be shut off, as will all forms of communication. All banks will be immediately closed. No one will be able to get any money because all ATMs will be offline. Credit, debit, EBT cards will not function any time. Cash will have no way to get any. The emergency alert system will be used to take over all broadcast stations and tell the public this is a result of a cyber attack. You know, and we've already seen, you know, them talk about the capabilities of Iranian, fucking North Korean, China, Russia, right? They've been gassing you up about this for quite a while. But while the American people patiently await for things to get back to normal, the government will unleash roundups of citizens they deem militant or dangerous. With all civilian communications out and all TV and radio stations taken over by the emergency alert system, by the time the word spreads of what's taking place, the government will already have the upper hand. And I'm going to show you too. This is what's spooky. Watch the videos when I hit you in just a second. You're going to see how eerily this just appears to be falling right into place with this is supposedly a hoax from 2016, which we all lived through and know that this was actually a real news story. Every federal prison has been outfitted with lethal gas systems. When things go bad, all prisoners in all prisons will be placed in their cells on lockdown. Prison staff will depart the facility, and a certain designated person will trigger lethal gas systems. All federal prisoners, regardless of their crime or their sentence, will be gassed to death in their cells. Once the gas clears, the dead will be removed, and the prisons will then be used to house citizens who fight against the federal onslaught. So intent is the government to succeed, they have recruited priests, rabbis, and clerics from various religions to quote appropriate scriptures about obeying government. They are being trained to tell people not to fight back and that their best hope is to pray. And the note goes on to great lengths about Executive Order 13603, which, if you guys are familiar with, this allows them to take all commodities and products that are capable of being ingested by humans, all forms of energy, all forms of civil transportation, all usable water from all resources, health resources, drugs, biological products, medical devices, materials, facilities, health supplies, services, and equipment, forced labor, or induction camps, as the executive order delicately refers to military conscription. And the note touches on the subject of preppers. We in federal law have also been told that the government has full database of all so-called preppers. And they've admitted this too. You know, recently we were told about a flagged list. And remember, when they reinstated everybody back on Twitter, and now they're allowing people to reapply back on YouTube, which I've had channels that have been reinstated back on YouTube. I've been banned on TikTok twice. I've been taken down from quite a few of these places, more than once, more than one channel. But you know how they were saying that Charlie Kirk was one of these people. These guys, they weren't. These people are working with them, right? That's just like, it's to make you feel like it's something cool to be a part of it, or to make you feel complacent with being a part of it. They have a database of all of this, and when they were removing everybody from all these platforms and shit like that, you know, when they were doing all of this shit in round one, you can guarantee that's what they were doing. We in federal law enforcement have also been told that the government has a full database of all so-called preppers. And it's not just preppers, y'all. It's truthers. It's anybody that is considered a political dissident. You can bet your ass on that. Those people will be dealt with first. by armed federal agents coming to take their guns, their food stocks, so food can be redistributed as the government sees fit. And I doubt that will actually be it, honestly. I think it'll be just to black bag your ass like some Vias for Vendetta shit, right? And you know, if I'm giving my opinion, right? My opinion, this begins, you know, with the same shit. Like, they could label any of us, you know, I could look like a fucking Antifa dude, right? I'm in a black hood right now. That's, anybody could be labeled one of these groups, and they've labeled many different groups, and they can continue to label more, right? And it goes on to show you that they're saying the different parts of it. Snopes claims that this is a hoax, blah, blah, blah. Well, we know how credible Snopes is, so you can take that with whatever you want to take that with. And this is the same shit under FEMA Rex 84, right? You guys know anything about that? Then you know. Now let me show you some other shit here. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Let me see. Where's the video at? I'm gonna pop up a couple of these here. We'll go here first before I get into my other one. I want to show you. Where's it at here?
Everybody needs to be documenting what's happening in Portland, Oregon, and sharing.
And see, and this is
everybody needs to be documenting what's happening in Portland, Oregon, and sharing it everywhere. TikTok has taken down Portland, Oregon as a location that you can tag.
I don't have none.
They have taken down the tag locations. They are actively trying to remove views of videos from Portland. There is a massive resistance going on in Portland right now, and I bet you don't know about it. Thousands of people, I'm not joking. ICE is attacking the police in Portland. The police. ICE is attacking the police. They pepper spray the police. They are beating people. They're documenting what's happening in Portland.
Right here, and it's just saying that right here in Portland, you know, they're literally TikTok, and think about it, who took TikTok over, right? Who took them over? Who is Trump in bed with? You know what I mean? Bad news bears, I'm just saying. That anybody even putting that they're in this location, the shit's being taken down.
And sharing it everywhere. TikTok has taken down Portland, Oregon as a location that you can tag. They have taken down the tags, they've taken down the locations. They are actively trying to remove views of videos from Portland. There is a massive resistance going on in Portland right now, and I bet you don't know about it. Thousands of people, I'm not joking. ICE is attacking the police in Portland. The police. ICE is attacking the police. They pepper spray the police. They are beating people. They're shooting people. They are spraying them with pepper spray. I want to be absolutely clear about something. ICE is not working with the local police. I have no doubt that the local police have been told to work with ICE, but ICE is attacking them. I repeat, ICE is attacking local law enforcement in Portland.
Well,
if I leave...
And that should let you know right there. Where's it at? Here?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Right here. Now, remember when we were saying that they were going to empty all of the federal prisons and shit like that? Check this out. This is letting you know, dude. They are... Is this just a coincidence? You know? I don't think so, man. Check it out. Right here.
Memphis to confront the surge in violence. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The president just announced that he is deploying a federal task force to Memphis to confront the surge in violence and crime. I want to assure every citizen of DeSoto County that your safety is our top priority. We are fully prepared to protect our community from any criminal activity that attempts to spill across our county line. I have contacted the Mississippi Department of Corrections and requested that they remove all state prisoners from our jail. This will create additional space in our correctional facility. We are putting every resource on alert. Our deputies are ready. Our tow truck operators are prepared. If you come into DeSoto County to commit a crime, you will be arrested, your vehicle will be towed, and you will go to jail, period.
Now think
Good
about
evening, ladies
that.
and gentlemen. The president...
They're literally emptying out state inmates. Sound a little familiar to you? You know, I'm just saying, like, there wouldn't be, and this is how I know, anytime that, you know, I got motherfuckers, anytime I got motherfuckers trying to shut my shit down, right? That's how I know I've always got this saying over the years, under attack means you're over the target, you know? If they're kicking my stream off before I did this one, literally going against the guidelines, that's why I was blinking out some words there, hoping not to trigger it again. It lets you know, why are they emptying out the prison? Did the thing I just not read you say the same exact thing? And that this would be done under the guise of the attack against illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, all of that shit. Look, I'm not done. We're going to go through quite a few here, and I want you to see, this is the reality.
Democrat wins in 2019.
This guy's a fucking
Anti-Semitic platforms like Gab.
Have you gotten...
And see, this is the...
If I attempt to leave this chamber today without signing a permission slip, am I subject to arrest by the government?
As I stated today, no one will be able to leave the chamber without a permission slip.
Mr. Speaker,
So knows for what purpose?
parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Why is an arrest under the call of the House not prohibited by Article 3, Section 14 of the Texas Constitution that prohibits members from being arrested during the legislative session?
So knows that is a general question that the chair declines to answer.
Mr. Speaker,
So knows for what purpose?
if I attempt to leave this floor today with this call of the House on me, why am I not protected from arrest by Article 3, Section 14 of the Texas Constitution that prohibits the arrest of members during the legislative session?
That is a hypothetical and general question. As previously stated, the chair declines to answer those.
Mr. Speaker,
So knows for what purpose?
can I walk out right now of this House without being arrested, or am I protected by Article 3 of Section 14 of the Texas Constitution?
There are separate provisions under the Constitution that provide for maintaining and compelling a quorum. They are separate. Ms. Hinojosa, as previously stated under the call of the House, there are permission slips that you are welcome to take.
Yeah, see, that lets you know right
If I leave,
lets you know
Local
right there.
law enforcement.
This isn't just some normal ass shit, dude. This ain't just some normal ass shit. Hate to tell you. This ain't just run-of-the-mill bullshit right here. The reason he's saying he won't answer it is because it's sensitive information. This is an operation that I don't think most people are even ready for. You know, people are still stuck in that two-party bullshit. Let's go here. Now let's take a look at some of these right here. Oh, and just to show you, this is them kicking me off the last stream, right? I literally got fucking 4 minutes in before they knocked me off. Antifa to receive the same approach as the cartels.
Fighting crime is more than just getting the bad guy off the breaking down the organization brick by brick. Just like we did with cartels, we're going to take the same approach, President Trump, with Antifa. Destroy the entire organization from top to bottom. We're going to take them apart. Thanks to your bold leadership and the designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization, which is exactly what they are, Americans will no longer tolerate their unhinged violence. We're not going to stop at just arresting the violent criminals we can see in the streets. Fighting crime is more than just getting the bad.
The only unhinged violence, and we all know it, the only unhinged violence that we are seeing right now is from our very own government. Right? The only shit that I've seen in all these cities, they may have high crime rates and shit like that, but notice these are the largest population centers in New York City, Chicago, LA, Portland. Like, these are big cities, right? And there hasn't been riots and shit going off the hook until they got there. Same thing with the J6 shit. Remember, if they dropped fucking 300 feds during that as an operation of instigation, that wasn't even real people doing that shit. So what makes you think it is them now? You know, like, wake the fuck up. You know, and it's like, and here's the sad part. You got so many people that are so fucking brainwashed by all this shit, like they can't see past. They're like, those fucking liberals, da da da. It's like, wake the fuck up, bro. If you're still on the two-party shit, you're lost in the sauce, bub. Take a look. See these cities? See these places? What's up? Do you see a strategy unfolding here? Right? Do you see a strategy unfolding here? This is LA. And don't this look so similar? That's the fucking funny part to me. Don't it look so fucking similar to, you know, the J6 shit? Remember, they were like, they had the American flags, and they were, you know, we seen the movie Glass and the fucking blood squids and the whole shit when they were doing that. Look at this. You know? Just like the George Floyd shit. There was bricks in the streets ready-made for all the people. It's like, motherfucker, we remember. We remember. Like, we were there. We watched it. You can't tell us what history is. You can't tell us what reality is. You know?
The Trump administration just sent 20 armed ICE agents to surround the mayor of Newark, New Jersey,
yes, this guy's
who's
a
a
pussy.
Democrat.
I get this guy's a pussy. Ignore the fact that he's a pussy and watch the video.
Mayor. And started dragging him into the ICE detention facility. Then
You're safe now.
they arrested him. Putting now the Trump administration.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, they changed it. Oh! Yo, they're shooting, they're shooting!
I'm gonna have to find a new spot to start doing my streams. I come out here and now I'm, you know, people have called on to me coming out here. I have a lot of people walking up to me on these, but I want you to see. Look, this isn't a Walmart. Check this out. They literally help as this guy gets his ass zapped. I bet you could smell the hair burning off this motherfucker. Watch this.
Yeah.
Why?
That's Parker. Yeah.
I could tell you, if you see the dude in the blue shirt is wearing, that's a Walmart shirt, by the way. Remember Janet Napolitano and the emergency crisis response in the FEMA Walmarts? Yeah, see, that's a Walmart shirt right there. See that? Ski mask, see Ninja Turtle motherfucker right there? That's a Walmart shirt. So when you're going to Walmart, watch your ass, because here's the thing. These people, they're not all rolling around in vans, dog. They're not just kicking it in vans and in turtle masks out in the open. You know, they're in plain clothes first. You know, this guy was, you can look at his shirt. Look at his shirt. Dude that zaps him. And that's why he put the turtle mask on when he comes out into the aisle. He was walking around as a Walmart employee. That's why it says Walmart workers cooperate. No, Walmart workers were posing as this. You know, Walmart workers were posing.
Own two profitable businesses.
Yeah. This bitch don't even know what hit you. She just gets maced right in the fucking face.
We do body checking because what?
Look.
Who is talking to you? No.
She's just talking that.
Oh, shit.
You want some pepper on that, bitch? Check this out. And I'm sorry that I can't go with you and the sad music and all that shit. I'm sorry. I do get there is a certain point. Like, look, if you came to my ancestors came to this country legally, right? My great grandfather was an immigrant in this country. Matter of fact, this is a nation of fucking immigrants. We're built on immigration. I believe legal immigration is cool, but this isn't about immigration, dude. And that's the problem, you know? You've got fuckheads like the Fed, Nick Fuentes. I'm sorry, dude. The whole Groiper bullshit, guys. That is a Fed motherfucking movement and a half, bro. Fed movement and a half. That pussy boy, the reason he can't walk around Chicago is because he's fucking 5'6" and he'd get his ass beat because he's a rich fucking little, you know, worm. That's why. That's why. You ever seen him? He pepper sprays girls when they come up to his door. You know? Like, these people are loaded, walking around with security, telling you how to live your fucking life. Tucker Carlson, his dad was in the CIA. He's married into the Kabbalah motherfuckers. Like, you know how they're getting down, right? These people aren't like me and you. So why are you letting them tell you how to live your life? Why are you letting them dictate what fucking policies you get behind, what politicians you follow, and what you believe? There's no more organic. Charlie Kirk wasn't organic. He was propped up by the fucking media. And you know what? Isn't it funny how the number one prosthetics for neck wounds was walking up with him that very same day? Right? I don't even want to get into all of that. You can watch my video on that. You can take it for what you will. You know? But if any other thing isn't real, then what makes you think that was? Just saying. Now watch. This is what they do. This is the type of shit they're going in schools and all of this. And see, they love to post this on social media, right? Because they want to put the fear of fucking God in you. They want to put the fear of God in you. They want you to pump your fist and say, get rid of those illegal aliens. If you think it's about them, they're so minute. So minute. And these politicians are the ones who fucking let them in the first place. You know? Just like with the drugs, and they're talking about Tucker Carlson goes on for fucking hours in his last podcast talking about how Portland, Oregon is such a shithole, and they've legalized fentanyl, or decriminalized fentanyl and methamphetamine and cannabis and all of that. And it's like, you motherfucker, you know? Would you, you know, and he's talking about what's humane is, it would be more humane if we didn't have areas for homeless people, right? We didn't have these green zones for the homeless. If we criminalize these drugs, and I guess what, put drug users in prison, you know, it's like, that's the type of politics these people want. They want you behind bars, right? They can't relate with the common people. They're not here. They're not in the cities. They're not here in the metropolis. They're not a part of the real population. They're living in their white fucking ivory towers trying to tell us how to live our lives. This is what happens to real people. Look at that. This is the reality, bro. This is reality. It's sad, bro.
Let go. don't have authority to arrest U.S. citizens.
They're doing this for their citizens and all. They don't give a fuck.
U.S. citizens. You don't have to. I'm not obstructing. I'm standing right here in the hallway. I asked to see the judicial warrant. By asking for a judicial warrant.
Escorting a fucking defendant out of court. This is crazy, dude. And it's like, people, you've got me so fucked up, man.
How would it take your shirt off? Alright, who's got a new shirt?
And see, and these are fucking idiots right here. Like, I don't show love to people like this. He thinks he's a badass because he's been blistered by all these guys up in their towers. And you can see where they're at, too. They're sniping people with pepper balls and all types of shit, you know. I have no love for the people that go to these things because they're falling for it. They're fucking all of us over by participating. This is what you call a useful idiot, right? He's white knighting for immigrants. And look, there's a guy right there. He's sniping them, busting ass with those pepper balls. They're white knighting for all of the immigrants, right? But as they're doing that, they're actually putting the noose around all of our necks. You know, that's what you call a useful idiot. This guy's a fucktard, and he's a useful idiot. That's what he is. He's a useful idiot. You know? And without them, they couldn't pull this shit on us. They couldn't pull this shit on us without useful idiots like him. You know, and notice most of them are media guys. Like the guy who came on Tucker Carlson talking about he got arrested. He's in with the federal government. That's why they dropped the charges. That's why they're doing all this to people. You know?
Pepper balls being shot from a sniper that was on the roof.
There we go.
I'll be right back! How would it take your shirt off?
Sorry.
How would it take your shirt off? Alright, who's got a new shirt? Holy fuck. Holy shit.
Useful idiots.
I'm trying to shoot me. Look at you. Say what I think. Get the fuck off the property. Take your job. Get the fuck out of the property. What you're doing is wrong. Fuck you. You're a fucking waste. Fucking die. You're a fucking waste.
Get out of here.
Fuck you, Nazi.
See, these people are probably paid protesters, just keeping it all the way real. See that? All those cameramen there to film it?
The footage where you hear something whizzing by me, those are like sting balls or pepper balls being shot from a sniper that was on the roof of the federal building where ICE is operating out of. They had a guy on the roof shooting tear gas canisters and these sting balls that were just whizzing by, and thankfully we had to duck. You know, they were shooting at press, anybody, it didn't matter, press, protesters, they were just shooting. And we actually had to duck down a couple of times because they came right over our head. One press got hit in the face with one of the sting balls. I got shot in my hand. It's a little bit swollen. So that's what's going on here in Broadview, Illinois.
Yeah, that's what I mean. These guys they're pussies. And here's the thing. These are not normal people. The same way that they paid protesters with the George Floyd shit, the same way that they paid protesters time and time again. Do you think these are normal people that are out here in the streets? Notice how all of them got their face covered up and shit like that. And they're not acting like real people act either. The same thing with COVID. Like, remember how they were telling you there was a line, for blocks and blocks to get vaccines? Did that end up being true? Did that end up being true? No. Remember when they told you how it would stop the transmission? Does anybody remember any of that? It's like, where the fuck has people like their memory of anything taking place. See, this is what happens with trauma-based mind control. They traumatize the fuck out of you time and time and time and time and time again. And what your brain does is it represses traumatic shit, right? It's trying to protect itself. And when all you do is watch horror movies and shit like that, right? And violence on the news and TV, you know, it's hard to connect the dots. You have that goldfish memory, you know? And we know the number one method of mind control is repetition. So when you have a narrative repeated to you over and over and over and over again, that becomes the truth. It doesn't matter if it's actually true, right? It's just what they say is true, and that becomes the agreed upon truth, because that's the consensus truth. Check this out.
Protesters at the ICE facility are trained upon, and I will provide my advice to the Title X commander that Oregon National Guard men and women they serve two purposes: one, to defend America, and two, to protect Oregonians. And so by serving in this mission, they will be protecting any protesters at the ICE facility. They're trained upon, and I will provide my advice to the Title X commander.
Why are they busting caps on the cops? That should let you know cops ain't our friends, bro. But all of a sudden, the people that are protecting their city and their state are getting busted on by the feds. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Like, just, I mean, really, ask yourself that question. I ain't never seen a cop have my back on shit, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't never seen the cops be really cool with nobody. Honestly, here in Cincinnati, they don't bother people because we had race riots and shit like that, so they can't really do it no more. But if they're fighting with the feds and they're at odds, right? And notice, they're threatening to arrest the mayors and the governors and the shit like that that's not going along with the federal shit. And now they're pushing this civil war narrative to us as well. You know, it's like the Civil War is not, they're going to try to paint it as some liberal versus conservative shit, but it's actually, you know, the states that are probably defending the Constitution against federal overreach is what it looks like it's going to be, you know. And remember, you know, Trump was busting out executive orders when he first walked into office, right? That was basically going after anybody. And remember, the executive orders that attacked anybody that went against him, basically, and what he was doing against the White House. You know what I mean? That was one of the first things he dropped when he got into office. People need to wake the fuck up. Right here. This is... This is a kid, man. This is a kid. He's a United States citizen. This is what they're doing.
I was born and raised starting to resist more now.
They didn't know his phone was still on.
Remember, you can spell that.
I don't give a shit what side you're on. That should not be okay. Okay, I don't give a fuck if you're red. I don't give a fuck if you're blue. That is an American citizen, 18-year-old boy, getting arrested by ICE, again, American citizen,
right,
being told by ICE that he has no rights. And in the commotion, his phone drops while it's still recording, and it picks up the officers later stating that
they're getting 30
these
grand.
People that they're arresting are resisting more, so soon they might have to start pew-pewing them. They then go on to joke about the $30K bonus,
right,
say things like, that's funny. Our ICE agents should not be operating like this. They should not be taking joy in their own destruction and then celebrating a $30K bonus, laughing about all of this.
Right.
Saying, oh, they've been resisting more often. Looks like we're going to have to start shooting them. That's crazy. My name is Mercedes Chandler. Give me a follow or you won't see my face again. Thank you. Goodbye.
I got rights to talk, bro. I know right. I do. Illegal, brother. Get up. I was born and raised in starting to resist more now. We gotta end up. Remember, you can spell that too.
I can smell too with that $30,000 bonus. You hear that, motherfucker? That $30,000 bonus, right? This is the type of shit they're on. And this was an 18-year-old kid. This is a bitch getting slammed. But this is an 18-year-old kid. He was an American citizen. This wasn't some illegal immigrant. We've shown quite a few Americans, throughout this. Either, most of them probably paid protesters and actors. And I would love to see that. That's the thing. You know why most people, regular people, when they go to these events, they either get arrested immediately or thrown the fuck out of these events because they already know. These are staging centers for the feds, dude. Like, flat out. I hate to tell you. That's what they're doing. They're setting these scenarios up, And this is for the news. It's the same way with COVID. Same way with everything. They've run the same fucking playbook on us time and time again. Watch this bitch get monkey dunked. Right? This is another useful idiot. See you, bitch. Get a better haircut. It's like, honestly, dude. Here we go. It just gets better and better. Like, look, old fucking man. This is why they're fighting the police. Right here. Do you see what the police are telling ICE? They're saying if you drive through the protesters, you're getting arrested. Right? They're trying to uphold the law, and these motherfuckers are coming into their cities creating chaos. That right there should let you know the scope of things and what it really is, dude. You ain't gotta trust me. I'm nobody, dude. I'm nobody. I'm not the fucking news. I'm not your government. Matter of fact, I wouldn't give a fuck, except I have children and family, and I'm a fucking American citizen, and I don't want to see a bunch of dumbasses fall for this shit. Honestly, I'd be better off to stay the fuck off of the damn, the live stream and sit in the house and eat fucking nachos and smoke pot is what I'd be better off to do, But something in me says, hey, there's so many people getting okey-doke by this bullshit, Like, where are the voices of reason? We don't have them anymore. They've drowned out all the regular people. Like, people like you and me, we don't get traction on social media, As soon as we do, they do what they did to the video the first time. They boot it off, I'm not sanctioned by the federal government to deliver this message. So you can't hear it. I'm not sanctioned by the feds to give you this message. This isn't a pro-MAGA fucking fucktard message. This ain't, a liberal purple-haired weirdo message. I'm not on either side. I don't care about either side. I know it's an illusion. I'm not a Bible-thumping Zionist. I don't give a shit about that either. I believe in God, but I'm not here to push one thing or another on you. I'm here to tell you, if you're going out to these protests, you're asking for it. You're asking for it. You better ask yourself, start asking logical questions. Why are the law and the feds at odds? Right here. Look at this. Portland police threatening ICE with arrest if they try to drive through the peaceful protesters. They're not peaceful, but you get it. They know what's up. They know they're coming into their cities to sow discord and chaos and create division. They're not fucking stupid. You know, I hate to tell you, law enforcement, they're trained in this shit. They know what's going on. You know, they know what's going on, and you can tell who's bought and sold, and you can tell who's not by the way that the departments are reacting to this shit. You know, they're telling them, I don't give a fuck if you're a Fed. And what do they say? It's like, we'll take care of it, right? Above and beyond the law, you know? And maybe they are. Maybe they'll come pop me for this.
We will liberate this city from the criminal element that has plagued it for generations. This is not just a strategy shift. This is an attitude shift. We are not going to live in an environment anywhere where there is a street that belongs to a criminal, where there is a neighborhood that belongs to a gang, where there is any physical space anywhere that belongs to anyone other than the law-abiding citizens and families of Memphis. The idea that there is a square inch of block in this city where a citizen doesn't feel safe is unacceptable. This is Memphis, this is the United States of America, and all that bullshit is done. It's over, it's finished.
Yeah.
So these are just some of the questions.
Here we go. She's a sack of dog shit, which we'll get to her in just a second. But this should make you feel real comfy. You know, if this is your city, you know, Memphis, we know they've bitched up and sold out. You know, Chicago's trying to fight against it. LA's trying to fight against it. And you know what? It's got nothing to do with like whether you're down for illegal immigrants or not. It's like, what is constitutional? When you're federalizing the National Guard, I'm sorry, it's unconstitutional, right? It's called posse comitatus, you know? And we'll get into some of the stats of all that, you know, after we finish up with these videos. And then we'll get into some of the Bible verses for the Bible thumpers out there who don't think this is scriptural. For all you guys that think that Donald Trump was sent by God, you know? Here's the thing about controlled opposition, and, you know, I've said it a billion times. I'll say it a billion and fucking one. Stalin said, the best way to control the opposition is to lead them. If J6 wasn't enough evidence that he's controlled opposition, right? When him and all the right-wing asshat clowns that were telling you, you know, to go out there and, you know, get in the mix before they set you up with the feds, you know, to try to label you domestic terrorist. I remember they were putting QAnon labels on my fucking videos back then, and I wasn't even a Q-tard. You know? Wasn't even a Q-tard, and they were putting that shit on my videos. You know, that's just how they get down, bro. You know? And this
whether you believe government officials, like immigration officials, have to abide by court orders, you wouldn't even answer that question.
And I see something about in the UK. Well, I feel bad for the UK, but you can see in the UK with the digital ID and how they're going to people's houses and arresting them in the UK, which, hey, if you're in the UK, don't even hit like on my video. If you're in the UK, don't even hit like on my video. Don't even comment on this motherfucker if you're in the UK. Seriously, because just for your own safety, you know, don't like my video in the UK. I'll let it slide. You know, it's all good. But remember what they're doing to the people in the UK. You know, the digital ID motherfuckers cannot work. You talk about some mark of the beast shit right there, right? Or how about them saying, you know, they're going door to door. They're confiscating little girls' phones for liking posts online. What? Huh? They're arresting people. They gave a guy 20 fucking months or some shit in prison for making a comment about migrants and shit for immigrants, right? So this is, you can see that this is the hill that they're going to die on right here. They're going to use the immigration thing, you know, which they allowed all of them into our countries. These are the same fucks that let them in. And now they're using it against us. Just like they did with the fake news shit. And then that got flipped against all of us. Remember, it was all the mainstream media is fake news. And then who became the fake news? I became the fake news. You became the fake news. Anything we posted became the fucking fake news. You know? And we were getting fact checked by the very same fucks they called the fake news the year before. This is how it works. You know? It's the old bait and switch bullshit. And this bitch right here, she's a sack of shit. And this is what I'm saying about this loyalist shit with the Trump thing. You know, and I'm going to show you some stuff too. Just give me a moment. But, you know, and remember, you know, Roger Stone, who was part of Nixon and Reagan and all this. If you remember, it wasn't Nixon that went to jail. It was his attorney general. So Pam Bondi might want to keep that fucking shit in mind.
Personal attacks on members of this committee. You were asked whether you consulted with career ethics lawyers, as you do during your nomination hearing, when you approved the president receiving a $400 million gift from the Qataris. You refused to answer that question. You were asked who or what role you may have played, or who played the role in asking that Trump's name be flagged in any of the Epstein documents gathered by the FBI. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Holman kept the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Holman paid taxes on the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did career prosecutors find insufficient evidence to charge James Comey? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, how are military strikes on these boats in the Caribbean legal? And you refused to even answer that question. You were asked, excuse me, you were asked, did you discuss indicting James Comey with the president? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did you approve the firing of antitrust lawyers who disagreed with the Hewlett-Packard merger? You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you support a restoration fund for violent insurrections to attack the Capitol on January 6th. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you were firing career professionals, career prosecutors, just because they worked on January 6th question, the January 6th investigations. You refused to answer that question. You were asked by my California colleague whether you believe government officials, like immigration officials, have to abide by court orders. You wouldn't even answer that question. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing.
Oversight?
Excuse me. You can attack me after my time is over.
You've attacked all of us.
So these are just some of the questions you refused to answer.
This is shameful. Like, honestly, these are public servants. And if you just listen to that list of shit she refused to answer the questions, it's all incriminating stuff from the regime that's currently in charge. You know, I don't care what your politics are. This is where we've got to wake the fuck up. And it's like, at what point? And I don't care if you can unfollow me, you can eat a dick, and then you can unfollow me and eat another dick. I don't care if you're a Trumper or you're not or whatever. Like, it's about and it's like people claim to want the truth until the truth is no longer convenient. Right? When the truth isn't politically convenient, your bitch ass wants to, you know, you got a deaf ear to it then. Right? Then you're becoming apologetic and making excuses for it. Well, those liberals, they're doing this and that. I'm not a liberal, but I'm still pointing it out. I'm still pointing it out. I'm not a liberal at all. Still pointing it out. Think I voted for Kamala Harris? Fuck no. Joe Biden? Fuck no. You know? No. Wasn't on neither one of their teams. But I can still see when corruption is corruption. Unconstitutional is unconstitutional. Immoral is immoral. Unlawful is unlawful. Are we going to pick and choose? You know? Or are we going to politicize everything and, you know, it's only what's convenient for our political arguments and politically motivated? This bitch should be in jail, honestly. And you know what? If we have any luck, she will be. Like I said, when they did Nixon and Watergate, it wasn't Nixon that went to jail. It was his AG, you know? So, you know, that's the only bright spot we have for Pam Bondi. And when they fucked you over on the Epstein files, you know, that should have let you know right there, like, where we were at with everything. Right there. Anybody who voted for him, they voted for those Epstein files. You thought you were getting rid of corruption, didn't you? You did, didn't you? You got tricked, didn't you? You know? Is this the candidate of God? Did God choose Trump and all of this to happen? Right? To sell out our country? Right? Federalization of the National Guard and all this bullshit? Is this what God chose for us? Or do we have that churchianity, Zionist Christian mentality, right? Where we think Israel is a political government and not God's chosen people. You know who God's chosen people are? The followers of Christ. That's who Israel is. Not a fucking, it's a satanic government. And if we turn against them, God's going to beat us down. Really? You ever thought that the fall of Babylon happens not because they turned against a political government, but because they turned against the actual Israel, which is God's people, when they turned against their own people? That's when it falls. That makes more sense to me. That's what's happening now. You know, just saying, just putting it out there. You know, so many people talk about what scripture and what's, you know, and what goes in with the Bible and what doesn't. You know, isn't it the Antichrist has got a few things. He takes a fatal wound to the head and lives. Anybody you know that had an assassination attempt, got a wound to the head and lived? Anybody that you know? Just asking a question out there, just throwing it out there, hoping it, you know, something sticks. Right? I remember a guy currently in there right now, right? Which we all know that was fucking stage nonsense anyways, but whatever. Who also deceives, you know, even, you know, the followers of Christ, right? I remember that. Hold on, guys. But you remember that, you know, even that if it was possible, they would deceive even the very elect, right? The whole world wonders after the beast, right? God's people are deceived by the shit, remember? It's like, does anybody ever read their Bible? You know? Anybody ever read their Bible? He comes in, you know, and deceives everybody and appears to have all the solutions to the problems and then flips on everybody. Right? Is anybody kind of catching on to the narrative yet? You know? Is anybody catching on to the narrative yet? Who come in with all the solutions, deceived all of the followers of God, all the Christians, and then who flipped on all of us? Who had the fatal wound to the head? Who was compared to King Cyrus, right? Printed on the gold coin. Babylon falls in the 4th year. Nebuchadnezzar, Nimrod. You could just draw so many different parallels between, you know. I'm just throwing it out there, you know. Just throwing it out there. I know, you know, there's some people, and see, look, this is, you know, this goes beyond shit. This is them in hospitals, which, think about HIPAA. You can't go in a fucking rehab, a hospital, any place like this. It's against the law. This is what I'm saying. This is their shit. This is why you see the police going against these motherfuckers. What they're doing is unlawful and unconstitutional.
I'm not touching you. Identify yourself. No. Let him go. You get your hands off of him. You don't need trouble. Hey. Let go.
Look at that.
Get out. But coming into a private business like this is a private business. I'm not you are not a federal agent to begin with. I'm not touching you. Identify yourself.
And see, and this is time and time again too. I just want to let you know how many different videos I've seen where these dirty fucking cocksuckers won't show, won't identify themselves and who they are. You know, like you know why they won't do it? Because they don't want their job is so great. They're so proud of what they do that they don't want to be identified. You know, like the Walmart motherfucker earlier. You see what I'm saying? Like they're in a hospital and a surgery team is having to kick this guy off of him. I mean, this is shameful. Like, I'm sorry. This is fucking shameful. It's shameful. You know? And remember, Maria Abramovic, she you know, this is a world-renowned spirit-cooking Satanist who said that the president should be Donald Trump. You know? Check my videos. I got a bunch of them posted. And why did she say that? She said that he's the magus, the great magician, which think about MAGA. MAGA derived from magus, magician, the temple of Set, which is the temple of Satan. Just for you guys not familiar with the occult, right? And remember, there is a fiery red beast in the book of Revelation that takes peace from the earth. You know, that red hat that they're all wearing. Just keep remembering, keep listening. But, you know, she said that he was so chaotic that he would force the people to wake up. And that's exactly what we've seen. It's exactly what we've seen. You know, it forced people to wake up.
You've called the district judge's ruling blocking the deployment of National Guard in Oregon illegal insurrection.
All right, here we go. They cut this motherfucker off of live TV, and we've seen this time and time again. Anytime they don't want on national television, they'll try to play that. Oh, we lost them, Bob. You know, like we lost the feed, Bob. Usually it's if somebody says the name Jesus, just to be honest. We've seen that time and time again. But here, let's show you. This is when they're talking about the federalization of the National Guard.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me? It seemed, Stephen, I apologize. It seems like we're having a technical issue. We'll try to fix that and get back to you after a quick break. Stay with CNN. You've called the district judge's ruling blocking the deployment of National Guard in Oregon legal insurrection. Does the administration still plan to abide by that ruling?
Legal insurrection.
Well, the administration filed an appeal this morning with the Ninth Circuit. I would note the administration won an identical case in the Ninth Circuit just a few months ago with respect to the federalizing of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Bam.
Stephen? Stephen?
Yeah.
Hey, Stephen, can you hear me?
Hey, Stephen. Stephen?
U.S. to read somebody that you mentioned I never heard of.
Reed Hoffman.
So who gave the order to flag records related to President Trump?
To flag records for President Trump?
To flag any records which included his name.
I'm not going to discuss anything about that with you, Senator.
Eventually you're going to have to answer for your conduct in this. And you won't do it today, but eventually you will. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
The president...
Senator Blumenthal, I cannot believe that you would accuse me of impropriety when you lied about your military service. You lied. You admitted you lied to be elected a U.S.
Right? Isn't that the Trump tactic? Like, you know, it's like that whole redirect, you know? Like, it's disgusting to me. It truly is. It's disgusting. It really is. It's shameful. It's shameful as fuck. Honestly. We should all be ashamed of these people. You know, That's the sad part of the United States. You know, it's not fucking, it ain't about illegal aliens or shit like that. Not at all, dude. Not at all. It's that we have sack of shit politicians like this, you know. Let's just take a look at a few verses here, you know. And I want you to see, you know, if any of these kind of remind you of anything. We have Daniel 7:24 through 27. And as for the 10 horns, remember, you know, we have the EU, you know, with the 10, right? The 10 horns coming from it. This kingdom, 10 kings will arise, with another will arise after them, and he will be different from the earlier ones. And he will subdue 3 kings, and he will speak words against the Most High, and he will wear out the holy ones of the Most High, and he will attempt to change the times and the law. They will be given into his hand for a time and 2 times and a half, which is 3.5 years, by the way, right? Then the court will sit, and his dominion will be removed and to be eradicated. You know? Do not let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first. And the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and who exalts himself over every so-called God or object of worship, so that he sits down in the temple of God, proclaiming that he himself is God. Do you not remember that while we were still with you, we were saying these things to you? And you know that which restrains him now, so that he will be revealed. And you know, and it's like, the restrainer is in place, and you know, it's like there's a point in time where all of this is unleashed. And this is one of the things that really bothers me. You know, when we're looking like the articles earlier, you know, and how it was talking about how you know, they would recruit clerics and priests and rabbis and shit like that to basically subdue the people, you know, and say, you know, you must obey government, blah, blah, blah. I feel like it's a different rhetoric than that. They don't say you must obey government. What they say is, and this is what they use on people now, they say, well, you know, people, you know, it's all going to happen because it's written, right? And because it's written, you know, it's like you have no choice in the matter, right? Because it's written, you can't change it, basically, you know? Because it's written, you should just lay down and take it, you know? Because it's written, you should just lay down and take it, and you should just shut your mouth and not say anything, you know, not fight against it, not anything. It's written. These things must come to pass, right? These things must come to pass, so just shut up. Let it happen. You know? And that's one of the things that bothers me. You know? That's not what Christ was doing. He was flipping over the tables of the money changers. You know? He got killed for being an activist. You know? It's like, do people, when people try to paint Christ as this pussy, it just drives me insane, dude. It's like, that's not the guy I imagine at all. You know? I don't imagine this weak little, you know, fragile pushover that, you know, that didn't talk out of turn and let everybody. He went into the money changers. He was flipping over tables. He took a cord and braided it and was whooping their ass with it. You know? He was whooping their ass with it. You know, and they try to paint him as this big wimp. And that, you know, and that you should be the same way. They killed him for rising up against the government. That's what he got killed for. Which was Rome, you know. And if you ain't noticed, we're modern day Rome today, right? Democracy and all that, that's where all that derives from, you know. That's where all that comes from. It's where we get our modern day government from now. You know, we still base our shit around the same holidays and everything. The Gregorian calendar, all that, you know, and think about that. You know, they were talking about a time, switching the days and the times. This was what they were doing then. It's what they were doing then. They're doing it now. Children, it is the last hour. And just have you heard that Antichrist is coming. Even now, many Antichrists have arisen, by which we know that it is the last hour. They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have remained with us. But they went out, and in order that it might be shown that all of them are not of us. And you have an anointing from the Holy One, as you all know. I have not written to you because you do not know the truth, but because you do. And think about this, you know. Think about the ones that have went out from us, but were not of us. These are your influencers. These are your politicians. These are the people that try to convince you that they're one of us, you know. They claim they're conservatives. They claim they're Christians. They try to act like they're everyday people, you know. They try to act like they're a part of it. Like they're right here next to us going through all of it when they're the ones doing it to us. And let me just tell you something too. And this is one of the things that really, really hipped me to how, and I'm not saying, I believe the Bible is probably the only true book on planet Earth, just to keep it real. It really is inspired by the Holy Spirit. It truly is. But it doesn't mean that there aren't versions where some things have been redacted. And the King James being number one. I know a lot of Christians be like, oh, only thing I'll read is a King James Bible. Well, let me tell you something. King James changed some shit, y'all. If you check out the Geneva Bible and Bibles before King James, what you'll see is when it, just for instance, when it talks about we wrestle not against flesh and blood, against the principalities, powers, and dominions of this world. Let me just hook you up with this little stat. That's not what it actually says. It says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, against the principalities and dark power and principalities and dark princes of this world, saying our politicians, the powers of this world, right? But see, King James didn't want that to be in there. Why? Because kings and princes of this world, that would mean the monarchs and the rulers of this world were corrupt. He couldn't let that stand, right? And if you remember the whole, anonymous and all of that centers around the whole anonymous movement, which that's been hijacked to Occupy Wall Street, QAnon, all of that. Anons have been hijacked a long time ago. So anybody wearing a Guy Fawkes mask today is a fraud. I'll just tell you that right now. Don't trust it. But we know that whole movement, that came from Guy Fawkes, who was going to blow up Parliament. Why? Because King James changed the Bible. That's why. That's where that actually comes from. The whole V is for Vendetta. You seen that whole movie where they're black bagging people and all that shit, right? Notice that the dictator that's ahead in Parliament reminds you of somebody, And I used to think that the comparisons of Trump to Hitler were so I thought it was crazy. I thought, how could people compare him to Hitler and da 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 da? And then you start to see like how that actually came to be, and that it was incremental, and that they preyed upon, they went against, which, don't let me make you think like I'm not for the transgender or homosexual shit like that. That's not my bag. I mean, I don't care what other people do. That's on them, but I do believe, anytime, nations open promote homosexuality, every empire that's openly promoted homosexuality has fallen. That's just a statistical fact. That's just what's happened. All the empires, once they go to that, they're done. I don't know why. Maybe it's got something to do with its You know, I don't know why, but it happens. But it's not my business who people sleep with. I don't really give a shit, actually. You know? But Hitler started his whole thing against, you know, Jewish people because they were doing trans surgeries and homosexuals and all of this. If you know where how he actually kicked off his whole regime and how that actually started, it sounds a whole fucking lot like, you know, what they sing today, right? You know, that anti-tranny and anti-homo and all that stuff, like, you know, and that was a big part of it, and it was this pro, you know, ethno nationalism, you know, type of thing, you know. And it's not to draw comparisons and all of that, but you know, and I'm not going to get into that because I have, you know, my own views about that. There wasn't even 6 million of those people living in Germany at that time, you know. So I'm not a denier or whatever, but you know, I just, like I said, history is his story, and it goes to the victors, you know, so they can make it whatever they want to. It's whoever won the whole shit. And, you know, and isn't it funny that we were so against, you know, Hitler and, you know, the Third Reich and all that, but we instituted Operation Paperclip and took every one of their fucking scientists, you know, and all of that, and they wouldn't allow the whole occultic side of the Nuremberg trials, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even know if they executed a lot of those people. I think they did the same thing that they do to this day. You know, they put them in witness protection and change their identities the same way that they do to this day, right? When we have these different events that take place, you know. So that's just my opinion. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. So I can't say for, you know, a fact how the shit went down. I can say, though, I don't believe the narrative that they tell us, because we know that every bit of history has basically been hogwash and bullshit. And I saw coming up out of the sea a beast that had 10 horns and 7 heads, and on its horns 10 royal headbands, and on its heads a blasphemous name. And the beast that I saw similar to a leopard, and its feet were like that of a bear, and its mouth was like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave its power, and to its throne great authority, and one of its heads appeared to have been slaughtered to death, and its fatal wound had been healed, and the whole earth was astonished and followed the beast. You know, and if you kind of look into that, which I've done many videos, it's been some years, which I'm going to continue my Revelation series. That'll be the next video I do, and we're going to get into a lot more of this stuff and show you guys, you know, where a lot more than what I've shown so far, because there's so much more to the story, so much more to the story than what people even know when it comes to a lot of this. You know, and with the leopard, and, you know, people correlate to different countries, right? The bear being Russia, the leopard being Germany, the dragon being China, you know, the lion being Great Britain or whatever, right? Like, people, you know, we'll look into that as we, you know, I don't want to jump into that right in this moment. But I wanted to give you guys some idea of some of this, something to think about. For many deceivers entered the world, who confess that not the Christ come in the flesh. The deceiver is of an antichrist. Does anybody remember when Trump was asked about, you know, if he's asked Jesus for forgiveness of his sins? No. He said no. You know, that right there lets you know, right there, if that's the litmus test on who's a follower of Christ, which it was said that Trump converted to Judaism back in a secret ceremony back in 2017 or what the fuck ever, you know, a secret ceremony back in 2017. It was said that Trump converted to Judaism, and he was seen kissing that wall just like all the other politicians and influencers, Charlie Kirk included. They were all kissing that wall, boy, with the little, you know, yarmulke on their head. You know, he was asked if he's asked Jesus for forgiveness. He said, No, I don't feel like you got to ask. I've been a good, decent person, and I feel like it's because he doesn't believe, dude. He doesn't believe. He's just deceived all you people that do believe. Because I hate to say it, the Christians are the most gullible group of people there are. You guys get slammed by everybody, and when I see you guys, I consider myself a follower of Christ, but I don't consider myself a Christian. Not in the sense that the mainstream churchianity Zionist sense of the word at all. What you guys are getting down with, I do not get down with. The pre-tribulation rapture doctrine, I know that that's a farcity. It's a falsehood, and it says that in the last days that people would they'd follow delusions from their own mind. False doctrines of devils, right? Strong delusions, and that's what's happening. The pre-tribulation rapture doctrine, that is Darby and Schofield, the Schofield Study Bible, that was disseminated by Jesuits and fucking Zionists. They're by a Freemasonic printing press from the 30s to the 50s through all the fucking churches in America through these pamphlets. And it's based on footnotes about a little girl's dream, by the way. It's got nothing to do in scripture, but they've taught it to you. That's so new in Christianity. That's why if you look at Coptic Christians and Ethiopic Christians and all these other Christians of the world, they have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Because they don't believe it. Because it's something new that we created here in America. It's a Schofield Darby Study Bible Christianity. That's what it is. Hate to tell you. Just like your 1948 political state. Hate to tell you, once again, if you ask yourself, who in Israel is God's chosen people? It's the nation of God, right? Do you think God's nation, which, if you look at the older Bibles, that was all Palestine, by the way. It was Palestine in that area, by the way. And I'm not saying I'm down with Palestine or anything like that. This is the sad reality about our world, is you have to even say something like that. If I say one, everybody's so anti and pro now that if you say you're anti one thing, then that must mean you're pro the other. So it's like if I say something against conservatives, then that must mean I'm a liberal. If I say I'm anti Zionist, Jesuit, shit like that, then I must support Palestine. That's the sad thinking of people. That's where we're at. We've degraded. Our thinking has degraded to that fucking point. And that's sad. That's sad. It really is. But if you look at the Bible, that was all Palestine. So when they say the Bible's their deed and their title to that land, which one? It's got to be a recent one, because those older ones don't have shit about your title and deed and land on there. Sorry, dude. Just like they talk about the princes of this world, right? Before King James. Sorry, homie. And when you look at it as well, Israel is God's chosen people. So who would God's chosen people be? Just think logically. We're going to use some logic. And I know it's hard because anytime we and this is why people are so easily manipulated through politics and religion, because it's cognitive dissonance. We identify with our political and our religious beliefs, right? That makes such a huge part of our identity, and it's so grounded and rooted in how we identify with ourselves that it's emotional based. And it's like once your emotional side becomes invoked, the logical side of your brain turns off, right? So if they can get you in that state of mind to where you're being emotional about a political belief or a religious belief, and notice, how do they conquer our population and conquer our world? Through politics and religion, because you get in that emotional thinking. You can't think logically anymore. Once that emotional side of the brain turns on, buddy, you're gone. You're cooked, But let's think logically for a second. Let's let's get our religion out of the way, right? Nothing with Christian, Islam, Jewish, nothing. Nothing about that, right? Who are God's chosen people? Is it the ones who killed him and deny him? Because I was just looking here, and it was saying, for many deceivers are entered in the world who confess not that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. So who is God's chosen people? Is it the ones who deny him? God's chosen people would be the ones who follow Christ. Them that say that Jesus is the Christ. Let's think logically here. Not with what we've been told by churchianity. Not with what we've been told by the pre-tribulation Zionist doctrine. Logically. Right? So Israel would be the followers of Christ. Right? That's why the Romans persecuted the Christians. It's why anybody who says the name Jesus on TV and in nations all around the world, he's public enemy fucking number one. You can't find Buddha. Nobody gives a shit about. Sorry. Your rabbis, your Zohar, nobody gives a fuck about them. Right? Shiva, nobody cares. You know, nobody's pressed about it. You can worship any other god, any other deity, any other entity. But you get down with Jesus and you're going to have some issues. And that's universal. That's all the way across the globe. And that's one thing, you know, and I hate to tell you, whenever I see, you know, and I've fallen prey to it, dude, into the Satanism and drugs and sexual promiscuity and all of it, you know, and I can tell you what witchcraft, you know, it's power. It's power that tempts us away from God, you know. It's the lust of the eyes. It's the lust of the flesh. It's a desire for money. It's the desire for power, for control, for sex. It's always the same shit that pulls us away, you know. And Christ was against all of those things. So when you see these churches talking all this prosperity teaching that you must be spiritually sick if you're poor, it's nonsense. These mega churches that are millionaires and billionaires and shit like that, I'm sorry. You're working for the wrong side, dude. You know, you're saying God's chosen people are the ones that deny Christ. And that it's a government, a political state. You know. Not the ones who follow him. The same people have their progressive, secular, LGBTQ-friendly churches, their pre-tribulation doctrines. It's like, people, wake up. You know, and this is, as a child, I always knew I would, like, live in the end of the age. It's just something I knew as a kid. I just knew it. I just knew it. I'm like, damn, you know, I will see the last days. I just knew it. Nobody had to tell me. Nobody had to tell me. But I never imagined, you know, I would see those movies and at like Vacation Bible School and fucking, you know, Left Behind and shit like that, you know, and I had an idea of what it would be like, and it was nothing like what it's actually like, you know, honestly, it's nothing what it's actually like. What it's actually like is far more scary because it's far more subtle. To be honest, it's far more subtle, and the deception is far greater than what I imagined. I thought it would be obvious as a kid. I thought everybody would be walking around with 666 on their forehead, and you know, like devil worshippers just outright, you know. That's what I thought. I really did. I thought that. I believe that. I believe that because that's what, like, the movies and shit told me it would be like. You know? And then you see now it's nothing like that. Selling your soul happens incrementally. It's by compromising your morals and your values for money, for sex, for greed, for power. You know? Compromising your integrity. You can sell your soul without ever being famous or a politician, dude. Happens all the time. Being a Satanist has nothing to do with fucking doing blood magic and, you know, drawing pentagrams on your fucking walls. Has nothing to do with it. You can do that too, you know. You might as well do that because at least you're outright doing it that way, you know. But it's like when you're giving power to the world and the things of this world and worshiping the things of this world, you know. That's what a Satan is. When you're elevating yourself as God, you know, self-worship. Remember, like, and I've said this a billion times when it talks about Genesis, we're made in the image of the Elohim. Image means a phantom, a projection, an illusion, an idol. So when it talks about worshiping false idols, it's the worship of the self. That's what it is, actually. You know, the worship of the self. You know, I feel sorry for the next generation. I feel sorry for all of us currently alive. Because it's us that are fucked, you know? It's like, you ever see those memes that talk about, they're like, you know, neural chips and all this cool, you know, like, no way, right? And then, you know, when Elon Musk and Donald Trump and shit's doing it, they're like, oh, hell yeah, you know? Like, that's what it's like, dude. That's what it's like. It's like, oh, man, yeah. But, I digress. I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to wrap this one up. I should actually get into something else, but I don't know if I got enough time here. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I do want to thank each and every one of you guys for joining me. And look, I know you guys are legit, hardcore truthers. And you guys really are good people. You're smart people. You know, like, stay out of the protests. Don't fall for their traps. Don't buy into the illusion. Don't buy into the two-party shit. And because you guys are good people and you support independent media, you support free speech, you will support me by hitting that like, subscribing, sharing the links. You can donate. PayPal.me, the Best Damn Podcast. Cash App, Best Damn Podcast. Or join me over on Patreon, patreon.com, Best Damn Podcast Official, or Facebook Pay, and it's John King Best Damn Podcast. All the links are in the description. I do want to ask you guys, share this link, share it to your social media, Facebook, all that good stuff. Follow me, Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn, TikTok, The Real Best Damn, Best Damn Podcast on BitChute and Rumble, and yeah, all the social media links are in the description, all that good stuff, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for joining me. I really hope you'll use your head and don't fall for this nonsense. You got to see that they're polarizing us and they're pinning us against each other. Not everything is anti and pro and all of this. Like, we got to wake up to what they're doing, you know. And remember, anytime it's in the name of safety and security, it's your ass that ends up getting, you know, torn up in the process. The war on drugs, the war on terror, the war on COVID. This is no different. The war on illegal aliens. It's never about what they say it's about. They're always fucking 5 steps ahead of you. Don't think this is any different this time. Alright, guys. Subscribe, share, like, comment. Please comment. I'll reply to your comments. And donate support. Alright, I love you guys.